Geocachomaniacs.
Geo Gearheads.
Welcome back to the Geo Gearheads. This is episode 491. I'm Daryl W4, back with Chris of the Northwest. Chris, say something so people know that you're actually real.
Hello, people. I'm actually real.
And that wasn't recorded. Oh, maybe it was.
Hello, I'm actually real.
I think we need to reboot the Chris machine.
Oh, Daryl.
It's one of those days.
Isn't it so fun to go into a meeting, not moving? You know, going into one of these Zoom meetings, you just sit still. Wait, he's frozen.
See, the problem is for me, I'm still working at the office. So there's always some motion in the background.
Oh,
but at least that way they understand why it sounds like, there's 20 laptops falling. It's because, well, the guy next to me just knocked over 20 laptops.
Oh. Did that really happen? 20 laptops?
No, just a series of 5 boxes for the laptops. The boxes were totally empty.
Okay.
He didn't pay enough attention as he was restacking the boxes as he had to move them. So, lots of loud noises during my meeting with the lawyers, actually.
I had a meeting with a client today. All day long. My wife has been home today. So everybody's in the house. It's been fine. Nobody's bothered me. I get into this meeting. 3 people come into the room to want to talk to me. And I'm like, no, not now. No. 15 minutes.
You need an on-air light.
I know. That's exactly what I was thinking. I got to figure out how to do that and tie it into Microsoft Teams. So when it shows I'm in a meeting, that light out there turns red.
Well, you have the webcam, right? With the LED on the webcam?
That's, yes.
So you just got to figure out how to tie it into that.
That's easy enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, just some wire.
Yeah, well.
You'll never move the laptop again, but that's okay.
Yeah, with some wire, a relay, and the transmitter, and then get a wireless thing. A thing.
Yep, see? Brian Lang said the exact same thing.
Yeah, run a wire from the webcam out the door onto your on-air light. See, and I'm trying to make it wireless with the relay and the remote control so that that's turning it on and off.
Yeah, I got an easier solution. I've got a lot of these wireless controllers, that turn a plug on and off.
Sure.
Of course, I don't have any here with me. I was going to show you one. And, they look like round plugs. So big deal. And just, turn one of those on and say, hey, Google, turn on the on-air light.
Well, yes, but that's not automatic then.
No, but it's closer.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly what I was thinking of doing now that we've got the inexpensive outlets and plugs like that, was just, wire up, because you can get those in wall too.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to try to find a clock outlet so that you could hang the light in front of it and just do it that way.
Okay.
And then it dawned on me, if I'm going to go through all that, why not just wire it into a switch?
Okay, so if you use a smart plug with if this, then that.
Which I don't use anymore because it's now too expensive.
I know, but you follow my thinking here. You can set it up that it'll sync with your calendar. So when you have a meeting, it would turn that on.
Yeah, which I used to actually do with the thermostat. So that the thermostat, anytime it saw a recording event, would go into the show mode.
I'm sorry, your thermostat has a show mode?
Yes. I created it's a comfort setting.
Oh, how comfortable are you right now?
Not very.
Okay.
See, part of the problem is I have to make it a little too cool in the house to keep things from getting way too hot in the studio.
Okay.
It's not so bad now that I've got LED lights, but still, Brian Lang says, are you sitting comfortably? let's begin.
Okay.
So I think with that, I'm going to let you introduce our special secret guest.
We have a secret guest. Oh, wait, there he is.
He's not a secret anymore.
This
But only
bear
for the
is
viewers.
Skookum. He's called Skookum Bear.
That is correct.
And Skookum Bear, describe what Skookum means for those who don't happen to live in Southwest Canada. Is it? I think it's just that region, right? Or is it a whole Canadian thing?
It's part of the Chinook jargon, which was a trading lingo. There was a whole bunch of different words borrowed from different languages, and it's kind of a way for traders to discuss things between different groups without having to resort to learning every single language. So Skookum means good, strong, best, powerful, ultimate, or brave. Something can be Skookum meaning really good or right on, excellent, or it could be Skookum meaning tough or durable. That's the definition I have on my user profile on geocaching.
Okay, there you go. So now that we know you're tough and durable, and not to mention cool, so you have a user profile on geocaching.com. Why don't you tell our fine listeners a little bit about yourself and where you hail from?
I am the reviewer, one of 4 for British Columbia in Canada. And I live in Abbotsford, the home of GeoWoodstock 18, coming next summer to a venue near you. Or near me.
A country near you? Yeah.
I was going to say that venue is nowhere near me.
Well, it could be if you fly out here. It's only 100 yards from the airport.
Well, yes, but
super convenient.
That assumes I'm going to be able to fly.
Well, that's next summer, so who knows what will happen by then.
Yeah, it's supposedly insane at the airports again. We're back to the regular insanity pre-COVID.
Yeah,
that's what I've told by people who flew recently.
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet in Canada. I still see regular reports of potential COVID infections on flights. So I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, but you know what they're saying in the more recent studies is you're not getting sick on the plane. The planes are pretty safe. It's getting sick in the airports.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's even that. Well, yeah. I mean, no, what else are you going to do but get sick of the airports? But yeah, it's you got to stay away apparently from the airport, but you can fly.
Oh, okay.
You have to get on or off the plane, on and off the plane, without actually going through the airport.
Outdoor airports.
I think you get arrested if you try to do that.
Well, it depends on where.
I know
there are still airports that are, no jetways or anything. It's,
Yeah. If you fly into Abbotsford, there's 2 jetways, but if those 2 are in use, you're walking down the stairs onto the tarmac and then back up the stairs into the building again.
See, the trick is, how do you avoid that building entirely?
Yeah, that's where security gets involved.
Yeah. Hawaii has a couple of open air airports.
I was just going to say, when I was in Hawaii, I can't remember which islands they were, but there were a couple of them that we flew into and out of, where they were just like, sheds. You walk through, checked your baggage, and then you're outside under pergolas and that kind of stuff. It was very nice.
Yeah. Well, the one I was in, I think it had an air conditioned hub, but where you're waiting for your plane in the terminal is exposed to the outdoors. You're still inside and in shade, but there's no air conditioning and open windows and such. So, kind of warm and humid.
It dawns on me. We've been going for almost 10 minutes, and I don't think we even said what our topic is, let alone got anywhere close to talking about our topic.
Travel.
No.
Oh,
that was several weeks ago.
Oh, I forgot that. I wonder. Hey, tonight we're going to talk about appropriate placements. We've talked about this a couple of times before, but Skookum Bear is a reviewer. So we thought we should bring him in to help us talk about appropriate cache placements. You know, what should you put out as the container? Where should you put it? We'll just leave it at that. You answer those two questions and we'll be done.
And then we can go back to talking about whatever else we want to talk about.
Okay, so I got answers for you. Don't put out a pipe bomb.
Okay.
And don't hide it near a school if you do.
Okay.
But everything else is fine?
Well, maybe.
You know, compared to that, yes.
Everything else is site specific.
Okay, so getting away from our actual topic again, GSM Times 2 says that the Burbank Airport has stairs to get onto the plane. Actually, nice because you get board and disembark from the front and back of the jet.
Yes.
It really speeds disembarkation time at when you land so much faster.
I love Burbank Airport. I mean, security there is just Billy Bob with a 6-shooter on his hip going, "You got anything? No, get on in."
Ooh, wow.
Interesting.
Okay, maybe that's not true, but it feels that way. Okay, a container. Let's talk geocaching. Billy Bob's going to go find a geocache. Let's say Billy Bob is looking to place a geocache, somewhere near the Burbank Airport, not on the grounds of the airport. That probably wouldn't be approved, but let's say nearby. No. Now Burbank is in California. It's hot. It's dry. So probably, plastic may not be your best choice. Maybe you want to go something, a little more durable. A lot of people really like peanut butter jars. They're plastic, but they're designed to hold in food and hold out contaminants. So it must be a pretty good cache container.
Well, I had a peanut butter jar one time that I was going to use as a cache container, and it went through the dishwasher twice. It sat with bleach in it for a week, and then it went on a shelf to dry. And a month later, I picked it up, took a smell, peanut butter. It still smelled like peanut butter. It was not gone. They are not good choices. They retain odors. If there's squirrels in the area, it's going to get chewed through.
Mm-hmm.
Not only squirrels.
Everything loves peanut butter.
Yeah. I have seen containers punctured by bear teeth or claws. I even have a set of backpacking dishes somewhere with the puncture marks in it because I didn't wash them when I was a teenager. All kinds of animals will go after anything with a food scent. And bears are curious. They'll come after anything that has any kind of scent that they're curious about. Avoid anything that was scented strongly. If you can get rid of the smell, it might be okay, but generally food containers should be avoided, in my experience.
I've heard of people having processes to, clean whatever the food container used to be to, make sure there's no smell. If you've got something that works, great, but make sure there is no smell in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a local hider who uses the Gatorade bottles. We actually talked about it a little bit beforehand. And he's come up with this elaborate plan to actually clean and wash them, and has had great luck with them. And part of why he has to use those is they're readily available from his fellow plant workers. And he puts out literally hundreds of caches a year. So he takes them, spray paints them after they're cleaned, puts the log in a container inside, and then ties them up and throws them out in the wild.
And hopefully the coordinates are close to where he threw it.
Well, he actually ties it to the coordinates, and then he throws it on the string. But he tethers all his caches.
Okay.
But that's part of why he uses them, because he can tie them. He actually uses zip strips to tie them to things. So, around the neck, you tie the zip strip with the hole for the string, and then tie the string, and that way they don't go running away.
Nice.
Yeah, I've taken, when I hide caches myself, I've taken to trying to secure them to a location with a zap strap, or I've used like a gardening wire. Then you can just cut them with a simple pair of pliers. They're easy to cut. I've used a stronger gauge wire, but that one rusted, so that one didn't last very as well as I had hoped it would. I've also used an elastic string, so you've got a little bit of pull to pull it away from the tree, but when you let go, it'll go back to where it's supposed to stay. But that lasts about 2 years, and then the elastic's worn out. So
yeah,
and the string doesn't hold once the elastic goes. So yeah, I mean, securing your container is always a good idea if you can, because that way it should be where you put it when you come back to find it later for maintenance.
Isn't that always fun when you're looking for your own cache? I know where I hid it.
I went to clean up.
It's not where I left it.
Yeah, I went to clean up a couple of caches that I had archived, and I couldn't find the containers. There had been enough growth, I just couldn't find the containers in the bushes anymore.
I have a 3D printed Jersey rail cache here, a little bison tube at the end of it, and this is a replacement. The actual container was pushed so far under the Jersey rail, I can't reach it. Nobody can reach it. So unless I went out there with some crowbars and tipped the thing over, it's stuck under there.
An extendable pole. Come on, your tot game must be lacking.
It's around the corner underneath it. Like somebody pushed it in and then sideways, so nobody can reach it.
Wow.
Patricia,
securing it in place is good.
Yeah. Patrice in the chat says that she likes lock and locks from Ollie's. I'm a big fan of the lock and locks, especially in the parks where they say it has to be a transparent container.
Yes. Well, and a transparent container is good anywhere.
Yeah, as long as it's not in the sun. They tend to get brittle and crack in the sun.
Right. Unless, like Patrice, there's a lot of preforms in the area. There, it's transparent, and it can be in the direct sun because, it's like 3 inches thick, or it feels that way.
Yeah. And you just have to make sure the caps don't crack on those. Otherwise, those are awesome containers.
But you should be able to readily replace the caps. Just go buy a bottle of pop.
But then it smells like food.
Caps don't usually smell too bad. The preforms, I have yet to encounter a preform that was bad. They're a really good container. The lock and locks in hot, dry environments, the tabs get brittle and break. Lock and locks that have been out for a number of years will get brittle and break as well. And in really cold conditions, they shatter in the cold. So
especially when you hit them with a walking stick.
I've heard that.
Tap, tap.
Oh, now I need to replace a cache.
It shatters like glass, which kind of leads into the next question. What about glass containers? They're usually strong, and they're easier to wash the odors off of.
Yes, but glass breaks. Something will break it. It may shatter in the difference in like a annual hot and cold cycle from freezing cold in the winter to hot summer sun. Might be enough of a variation in one day that it can shatter from the temperature differentials over a day. Somebody might hit it with a walking stick. We generally try to, like, if there's any hint that a container is glass, we generally try not to publish those, because the broken glass has hurt your geodog's paws, for example, or wildlife's paws. So we generally try to steer people away from glass if we can. Now, if it's a location where it's not likely to break, like say you've got permission from your local visitor center to place it on a shelf in their visitor center where there's somebody doing maintenance all the time, and if there's broken glass, it'll get swept up right away. That might be okay. Of course, indoor caches are a different problem. But yeah, I mean, containers should be outdoors. The game is really an outdoors game. There are a few exceptions for indoor caches, which you can get into in the help center if you really need to look into those.
All right, Annie's bringing up another problem. Lock and lock containers don't stand up to bushfires.
Not a lot does.
Not a lot does, no.
I was just going to say, what
we have regular
does?
forest fires here in BC. And we have areas that have burned in 2017 that still haven't reopened to the public. The damage to the terrain was so bad. Like the fires came through and burned this down into the soil and burned the roots. So nothing's holding the ground together anymore. So the first storms that came through started causing mudslides. So they've closed some areas completely because the ground is so loose and movable. Even ammo cans don't necessarily stand up to a fire. The can itself will probably be fine. It'll be black, but anything in the can may burn or melt.
Yeah.
I found one a couple years ago in the Gold Country Geo Tour here in BC that the container had burnt and the contents were melted or burnt. So I contacted them and said, "Hey, there's a problem with the cache." And the next time I went through, they had replaced it. So
Gold Country's good about that.
They have a good team up there.
Yeah, they do. So it's not quite a pressure cooker, but consider it as like baking something in your oven, right? It's everything inside is going to get hot and stay hot for a while. So
I have a Geocoin. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, unlike an oven, there's no vent to let the heat escape.
Right.
Yeah, I have a Geocoin that was mailed back to me because it survived one of the fires, probably about 2017-ish. And all of the enamel and everything is gone. So it's just even the plating on the coin came off. But the coin itself still survived.
Now, speaking of wildfire, GSM ×2 had a fire go through he gets fires quite often in that area. He says, if you put a container under rocks, they do pretty well. After the Thomas fire, we found M&M tubes that still had viable logs, although the tube had melted some.
Interesting.
So, yeah. Then it depends. I think it depends on the fire, right? That was a pretty fast moving fire, and it depends on how much material is above it.
Yeah, and I was going to say it probably depends a lot on the rocks too, because if it's a bigger rock, it has more thermal mass.
How much vegetation is there too?
Right.
I know we have a program here in BC called Fire Smart, which teaches homeowners how to keep vegetation away from their house, among other steps. Because if embers fall on vegetation right beside your house is gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is to it. So they teach people to keep, not plant trees and bushes and flowers right up against the house because they just burn too fast.
Yeah, so all that stuff that we look for. All that stuff we look for in the Midwest, doesn't work out there.
Yeah. Yeah. A cache hidden in rocks with no vegetation, that's probably going to be fine.
Mm-hmm. It'll get warm, but there's not enough around to keep a fire going. Okay, so we've talked a little about containers and how to melt them. What about the location? So pile of rocks seems okay, but the Burbank Airport is wrong. So what should I do if I go out and I find a cache? Let's say I found a cache that was sitting behind a tree in a gallon glass jar. And that was the most worried I had ever been about putting a cache container back. Really careful. It was actually sitting on rocks. And I thought, wow, this can't be good. So what should I have done in that situation?
I had a similar situation. I found the cache in the big rocks they put around bridge abutments to kind of protect them from a fast flowing river. There was a glass container, And again, like you, I didn't want to put it back down on the rocks because you're so nervous that it's gonna shatter if you put it down too hard. I contacted the cache owner and said, "Hey, the glass container is probably not the best idea," but that's where I left it. I didn't do anything else. You could contact your reviewer and ask them, but it's not. There's no guideline that says you can't use glass.
Okay.
It's just not recommended. So we, as I mentioned earlier, we try to steer people away from that. Now, if it was in a pile of rocks right beside the airport fence at the Burbank Airport, probably not the best place because the security's going to come and say, "Hey, what are you doing by the fence?"
That happens a lot at malls too.
Yeah, malls. If you're trying every lamppost in a corner of a parking lot trying to find the cache because you don't have the quite right coordinates, security may come and ask you what you're doing. I have heard of that before.
You mean somebody would place a cache and not get permission?
Say it isn't so.
It isn't so. It's so.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is so. It's seen as a public place, but it's private property. So technically, you need permission.
All right, we have another scenario from the Pickle Ninja, who says, "Is putting a geocache in the bottom of a swimming pool filled with pickle juice appropriate?"
Well, I can tell you this much: I'm not going anywhere near it.
Well, Houston, Texas, Dave thinks it is. I don't know that it's appropriate, but I certainly would like to see it.
I think it should be a glass container filled with pickle juice.
It's pickles.
Yeah.
How can it not be glass?
Yeah, there you go. And, you have to just throw it back in and hope for the best.
Well, yeah, if it's a jar thrown into pickle juice, I would imagine it's going to float.
Depends how much air you have sealed in the container.
Yeah, very true. But yeah, it's going to be...
If you use a vacuum pump...
Okay, there we go.
Oh, there
I
you
was
go.
going to say, if you're going to sign the log, you're going to need the air, not liquid. Anyway.
Just take a drink of juice and throw it back in. It'll float.
Pickles will never die.
Okay, so we talked about an airport. That's probably not the best place to hide a cache. What are some other places of concern that, as a reviewer, if you saw, it's next to this location, I'm immediately going to say no?
Well, there's a convenient list right in the guidelines for that.
What?
Let me just find it.
I don't have time to read that. And I don't understand why the reviewers say no.
Oh, there's a list of restricted areas. Where is it? Geocache is in an area that is sensitive to additional foot or vehicular traffic, such as archaeological sites or historical sites or cemeteries. Geocache is on a railroad property or right-of-way. So don't go and try and hide it under the railway ties or the rails themselves. You'd be surprised how many times people try that one. Geocache, this is the big one that I see most often. Geocache is problematic due to its proximity to a public structure. Examples include highway bridges, major roadways, dams, government buildings, schools, military installations, hospitals, airports, and others defined in your local regional geocaching guidelines. School, yes. Schools have caused so many problems in geocaching's history. You may have permission from the school. You may have permission from the principal, and the teachers have been informed about it, but the parents haven't. And some parents are going to see somebody lurking around outside the school, searching through a garden or clump of trees or what have you near the school, and they're going to call the police. And then you have an incident and a lockdown at the school. So that's the main reason you don't want geocaches at schools or near them. I mean, here in BC, we generally try to ask people to keep them a full cache distance away from the school because the parents are there to pick up their kids and they're walking to and from school. So even that can be a problem. So we generally try to ask people to keep their caches a tenth of a mile 161 meters away from a school. I mean, it's not a hard and fast guideline, but that's the general restriction we try to use here.
This is one of the rare times, Skookumbear, I know the metric to English conversion of 161 meters.
The other one that doesn't seem to always apply is the definition of a highway bridge. Now, a lot of people think it's just those that are on your major highways or your interstates and so on. And it depends on the laws in your local area what is considered a highway. In most Canadian provinces, the Motor Vehicles Act, or whatever they call it, or whatever the equivalent is, defines highway as basically all public roads.
Oh.
So here in BC, we generally steer people away from putting geocaches under road bridges.
Mm-hmm.
Now, pedestrian bridges, different ball of wax, especially if it's off in a park somewhere, probably not going to be a problem. But anywhere where there's engineers inspecting bridges regularly, you don't want them to find a geocache and call the bomb squad.
Going back to the school thing, Houston, Texas Dave asked about caches on college campuses.
That's an interesting question because it really boils down to who owns the land and who is capable of giving permission for a geocache on that land. Some colleges, smaller ones especially, are privately owned, privately run. Others are big public colleges, universities, what have you, that are run by the college or the state or a country government. Ultimately, every cache requires permission. So long there's no way to avoid that. Every cache should have permission. However, when it's on public property or areas where the public is generally allowed to be, maybe you don't need to always get permission. But if something happens to your cache, you're going to be the one responsible for any consequences that a response to your cache might bring. So that's why we ask for permission. Back to universities and campuses. I know several universities up here that have geocaches on public walkways in those universities. Like they're along trails. There's the University of British Columbia has an earth cache that visits several buildings around the campus because they've got different types of stone used on the buildings. And the earth cache reviewers are more strict about permission because it's a requirement in their guidelines.
Well, and the permission, going back to that again, doesn't apply just to the area where the cache is placed, but also the area surrounding it. So I get every so often one of those no trespassing signs with a cache just on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And I just walk away. You can't get to it without crossing the no trespassing signs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but Daryl, there's a smiley there.
I know.
You have to.
Well, in some cases, it's like, oh, okay, I have to go into this park. But most of the time, no, it's just in this area with no trespassing signs.
Yeah. Well, when I'm out geocaching, I have my player hat on and not my reviewer hat. And I will generally take a photo of the no trespassing sign, mark where the cache is when I get home, and post the photo with a needs archive log and a found it log because I did find it. And then I let the reviewer, me, deal with it later. Because I'm the one in BC who handles the sweeping process, where I look at the needs archive logs when they come in and determine if they need to be archived or not. And for those that are behind a private property sign or no trespassing sign, that's where I check to see in the original reviewer notes whether there was permission granted. So that's why it's very important to document your permission if you have permission.
And
I've
sometimes too just asked if I should post a needs archive log when I run into those situations.
It's helpful that you do, because we really don't want landowners angry with geocaching because somebody's hiding geocaches on their property without their knowledge. Now, I've seen here in BC in the past year, there have been several places where public land has been subdivided and sold. So now there are no trespassing signs where previously it was public land. So in those cases, those caches do get archived because it is now private property. And there's not much like anybody can do about it, because any former permission is no longer valid because it's got new owners. Or, I mean, even if a piece of private property gets sold, new owner may not even know about the cache when it's sold.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not a detail that usually makes it into your real estate disclosure forms.
Well, and even when we have like
An extra
change in government management, if we go through the elections every few years, you get a new mayor and they decide like parks are for city residents only. So that permission that you got from the previous park commission is now rescinded, and you don't even necessarily know.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had some parks departments up here add geocaching policies after years of geocaches being in their parks. And unless they ask otherwise, everything that's out there is grandfathered.
Okay.
So we just ignore those for the rules that apply, and apply the rules from that point forward. Like in Metro Vancouver, there's the city of Vancouver, and then there's Metro Vancouver, which is kind of the regional district, which owns a bunch of parkland as one of their. They also run the local water system for all the cities, things like that. So they're kind of an overarching government body, but they own a bunch of parkland, and they put in a geocaching policy that geocaches couldn't be closer than 500 meters to each other instead of 161. So quite restrictive, but anything that was in their parks prior to the rule was allowed to stay. So as caches get archived, people see, oh, there's a spot. No, sorry, the new rules apply. There's no spot. It's tough, but that's the rules that they've chosen to go with. So
now, Skook and Bear, as a reviewer, are you aware of these changes? Are you made aware? Is it just by geocachers? Is it by geocaching.com itself? How do you find out that, in this case, the park rules said 500 meters now?
Well, I mean, in recent months, I've had several where a park has written to HQ, and they forward it on to me and say, hey, this area wants to know what geocaches are in their parks, or this chunk of land is a conservation area, no geocaches are permitted. So we have a mapping tool that we can mark off areas with what the rules are for that area in terms of placements. And we just document those as best we can and carry on. And it's some years there's very little that I need to document in there, and this year there's been several. So I think with everybody being outdoors and spending more time in parks, there's certainly been an upsurge in new geocachers out here. I'm certainly seeing a lot more names on logs that I've never seen before. So I know some parks are being overused, and that means more people tramping through bushes trying to find geocaches. And parks are noticing, and they want to know where the caches are and make sure they're on trails or in areas that they think are appropriate. And I'm waiting for one park system to get back to me and tell me that which caches are acceptable to them and which aren't.
Okay.
And they own a lot of parks.
Houston, Texas Dave says that the Houston Auditorium Park recently made a policy that they can only place geocaches in their park, So all geocache owners who had a cache in the park were archived, except for the ones placed by them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
at least
that
in
can
those
happen.
cases, you know when the permission has been pulled.
Mhm.
The problem becomes when it's something like the sale of land and you've lost permission.
Yeah.
Ah, okay, that makes more sense. Auditorium should have been Arboretum.
Same
Close
thing.
enough.
Indoor or outdoor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's some areas that are sensitive to traffic and use. What about a difficult to find geocache? Let's say here in the Northwest that there's a rock wall hide, right? And it's a difficult to find one, and people are pulling rocks out of the wall because they're loose, trying to find where this is hidden. Um, what
Yeah.
happens in that situation?
Rock walls they're great hiding spots. There's so many places to look, and I hate them so much.
Thank you. No, they're not good places. They're the worst
Oh no,
ever.
they're great places to hide. They're horrible places to look.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the damage that geocachers have done looking for caches. Like they pull out every rock and they just toss them at the bottom of the wall so they don't have to. Oh, did I check that one? They
Right.
don't have to check it again. And they don't replace them when they leave. So that now there's a pile of small rocks at the bottom of the rock wall and bigger holes in the wall. So yeah, it's not a great spot for a cache. Again, it goes back to permission. Who owns the wall? That may be tough to find out, especially if it's a retaining wall alongside a highway, or a retaining wall alongside a highway probably belongs to the Department of Transportation or whatever they're called in your area. A retaining wall in a park, probably owned by the park, but who knows?
Right.
So it's hard to get
All in
permission for
all-
those. It's just
All in all, we're just another
stone in the
rock.
wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Sorry, I had to.
I know. I've been listening to this podcast long enough. I know.
And he says some landowners get cross if there's too much traffic on the public roads that are alongside their properties. Need to be aware of possible problems and be sensitive to local landowners.
Mm-hmm. There's one particular type of location that I try to steer new geocachers away from. And there's no guideline against it. It's just personal experience from being a geocacher and seeing problems arise from caches hidden in this type of location. It's the end of a dead end street where there's a house on either side, like from the end of the road. They consider it their street. They're the only people who ever drive there. And now all of a sudden, there's car after car after car coming to the end of their street, spending time usually at the dead end sign, because that's where geocachers like caches, or the barrier or whatever it is that marks the end of the road, and then leaving. And it's suspicious to them. So sometimes they'll come out quite angry and confront people, and then caches get archived. And so I generally try to steer a new cacher away from those places and tell them, hey, this is not a good idea. This is the kind of problems that have occurred in the past. But there's no guideline against it. You can still hide your cache here if you really want to, but this is what my experience is. And then it's up to them if they want to choose a better spot or not.
All right. What else
do we have in the list here?
I'm sure there's a lot more stuff we could talk about.
Oh, are we running out of time?
Well, we are getting close to time.
Okay. This one goes back to container choice again, but container choice in relation to where you place it. So let's say you have a bison tube on a fishing line. Where's a good place to hide that?
Dangling off a bridge.
Sure. I've seen that. A pedestrian bridge, but I have seen that.
Right.
A lot of people like to put those in sewer grates to storm sewers. So what happens if the geocacher let's say it's a short piece of fishing line, and the person's sitting there unscrewing it right over the grate, and then butterfingers and half the cache is gone. Not a great place.
What? No, it's fine.
That's usually the problem with the bridge heights too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's an awkward location, and it's hard to get the container, is it going to get dropped? And if it does get dropped, can it be retrieved? It's something to consider when you're hiding a cache. Another location that it's hit and miss whether it'll be accepted, because different cities, towns, provinces, states, what have you, might have different rules. Traffic circles, the middle of traffic circles, highway on and off ramps. Tough choice, tough decision as to whether or not to allow geocaches in those areas. Here in British Columbia, we've had, before I even was a geocacher, the Department of Transportation at one point asked that all geocaches on provincial highways be archived. That lasted about a month before they changed their mind and decided that they could only be in places that the public was expected to stop. So viewpoints, pullouts, things like that. So that automatically rules out all your highway on and off ramps, traffic circles in the highway system for sure. We also have traffic circles that belong to cities and towns that the provincial rule doesn't apply to. But we generally ask for permission for places like that from a review perspective. And I have yet to have somebody come back with permission for a location such as that.
Well, and the hard part about getting permission for a lot of those locations is even figuring out who to get permission from.
Yeah. I have one local geocacher. He has taken it upon himself to go to the city's online mapping service and find pieces of land that belong to the city, because they have a policy that they require permission in their parks, but not on other city land. So he goes and finds the chunks of land that are left over from a roadway project that are now just, they're too small to sell. So they're just city land. And he's hiding caches all over the place in those.
Okay, I don't, but I like that tenacity. That's pretty cool. Yeah. All right. Any other parting thoughts that people should look out for in placing caches?
I just saw GSM Times 2's comment about play equipment.
Yep, around play equipment in parks. That's always a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, it's not a great location. There's no specific guideline against it, but you have to consider there's a lot of us middle-aged white men geocaching by ourselves. What will the women watching their children in the playground think of a guy going in and looking for a cache in the playground?
In my case, he looks sexy, but in your guys' case,
oh, Chris,
you're welcome.
And with that, I think we better wrap up the show.
Yeah, I don't have to come back to that one. Sorry.
See, Chris knows how to end the show.
Yes, I win again. Skookum Bear, thank you for joining us. I think this has been very informative, getting to know some of these rules around appropriate cache placement.
Yes.
And folks, make sure to check out the Cache-A-Maniacs website. That's the appropriate placement for cacheamaniacs.com. And for more on the Geo Gearheads, including show notes for this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners. Leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cacheamaniacs.com or through the many channels of social media. Your support helps keep the Cache-A-Maniac shows coming, so please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cache-A-Maniac shows. Geo Gearheads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2021 by Daryl Wattenberg, all rights reserved.